Good afternoon, cult members, and welcome to the Pop Culture Cult. I'm Sean.
I'm Josh.
And this is the Rebel Files, your one-stop shop for everything Star Wars and Disney news, because
Oh, man.
stuff just broke and we happen to be recording tonight, so...
By like 10 minutes ago, I want to say, is when it hit the news feeds.
Yeah. We're going to talk about the first episode of the final season of Clone Wars. We're obviously going to talk about what is now called the High Republic, which was Project Luminous, the Toy Fair. But we got to start off with what just dropped. It is Star Wars kind of adjacent. Bob Iger Disney and Bob Iger just announced that he is stepping down as CEO of Disney.
Immediately.
Effective today.
Now. Effective today. He's going to stay on, fill out the end of his contract through 2021, but in a creative role.
Yeah. And Bob Chapek?
Chapek?
I
think. I don't know.
I don't remember. I've heard it a couple times, and I've heard it a couple different ways. So, but he's been in charge of the parks and experiences. He's been the CEO of that part. He is coming in to be the official new overall Disney CEO. I find it interesting that they're doing this now. They've been talking about that Bob's going to leave by the end of his contract in 2021, and they've been kind of working on a transition for a while. But it's February of 2020. I don't understand. I'm not upset, but I just don't understand the timing of it.
No, and what's really striking is it's not so much that it's happening, because, I mean, like you mentioned, it's been in the pipeline for a little bit now. It's the effective immediately part, and that's what's really kind of setting a tone. And it's interesting because, and I don't know all the ins and outs, obviously, at Disney, but, Galaxy's Edge is still having issues, So the guy who's in the parks of experience is stepping up as CEO. I'm wondering what happened. Now, Iger stating that he wants to actually focus on the creative side of things, which is fair.
Right.
Obviously he's done a lot in the consideration of that, not just from a business standpoint, but also because he's obviously helped launch Disney Plus, which was kind of the big coup de grace. The Marvel expansion, the Star Wars stuff, and everything else. So he does have a focus on the creative content. He's very, very focused on what the content's going to be that they're going to serve and everything else.
Right.
It just seems it's kind of an interesting shift, and it makes me kind of wonder a little bit more of the backstory as to why all of a sudden now, right when they're about to land this 1-2 punch.
Yeah, if the Galaxy's Edge thing is like everything else that's happened when they've done a big expansion at Disneyland or Disney World. There's always been a struggle for it to get its foothold and get going. So that part I'm not really worried about as much. The idea that they're bringing in the parks guy now. They had somebody else who was in the running, but the idea that they're getting away from a creative control kind of type person to a parks person after they have done all of these major all this major stuff that they just bought, I'm a little concerned. Only with I love the direction that Disney is going in right now. I just don't want there to be a drastic change to just do park stuff. It's not like they haven't done that before, but I just, your brand is built on all the different things: your platform, your content, your parks, your toys, your clothes. It's built on this giant thing. I just don't want one to overlap or outshone with the other right now, and that's. This information is 15 minutes old, so a lot of the detail will probably come out later. I know that CNBC is going to have a sit-down interview with Bob Iger and Bob Chapek, in 20 minutes. So we might get a lot more information when this comes out. That interview comes out. My one concern is when they said effective immediately. I was really worried that it was something health-wise, public relations-wise, like that kind of thing. But what it generally sounds like is this has been in the works, and they just wanted to get ahead of it a little bit. That's all it really sounds like, at least as it sits right now.
Yeah, it's a very corporate statement, naturally. Something like this is going to be very buttoned up. I don't suspect. Iger's always been kind of a straightforward, shooter for the most part. I don't suspect it's
Right.
anything nefarious.
Right.
It does sound, I agree with you. I think it's actually something planned. They just decided, hey, cool, all eyes are on us right now. Let's go ahead and pop it. And that's not going to change a whole lot. I mean, it's natural they do focus on the parks. They kind of need to focus on the parks right now. The parks are actually, if anything's having a PR issue, it's the parks.
Right.
Because of
That's
the
fair.
drawbacks with Galaxy's Edge, the fact that they just jumped the rates again for the park.
I
They're
don't want to get
adding
into that.
Marvel Land. I know they're adding Marvel Land and all this stuff. So there's a lot going on within the park community right now. So to a degree, it makes sense. Marvel's still being run by the Marvel Group. Star Wars still under Lucasfilm and that group and everything else. So I'm not too worried about that angle of it. I hope everything's kind of okay with Iger.
We will probably have more information as we go along, but this is a good time. There's not a whole lot of pop culture stuff going on right now in the world, so this is kind of a good time if you're going to drop something like this. You can control the narrative a little bit more, I think, when you get ahead of it like this, instead of having there be 18 months of speculation of who's going to be next and everything, which is why I was saying I hope it's just trying to get ahead of it more than it is something bad. I won't say nefarious, but that's what the word I want to use. So, but yeah, like I said, it's brand new information, and we should get more and more details as we go along. Let's talk about. We're gonna do a little bit of a spoilery talk about the first episode here of Rebels. Rebels. That's what it is. The Clone Wars, the final season, the season 7, the one that we lost. That we never thought we were going to get. And we got the first episode called The Bad Batch. Now, we've both watched it. What did you think? I have my thoughts, but what did you think?
I loved it. It's definitely a little bit of I don't want to say it's a slow start. I mean, there's obviously, this is crossing over with Revenge of the Sith, so we all know like the moments and stuff we're waiting for. But I got to be honest, I really dug it. I think, they didn't change anything. I had a couple people ask me this past weekend, did they change the tone? Did they change the tempo? Did they change the animation? No, this is dead set Clone Wars. It is a continuation, and, they started it off in a really awesome point. One, The Bad Batch was written very, very well.
Right.
It's kind of aggressive. I mean, really, when you think about it, they're starting to show some serious dark sides to this conflict.
Right.
They have in the past, but... okay, I've got a couple other species being introduced that we hadn't seen before. But I like the angle that they're going with it. The whole, spoiler alert, the whole concept that Echo is still alive and they're literally feeding into his brain to anticipate all the clone movements. That's some deep stuff. That's something we really haven't seen in the universe before.
I have some issues, but what I liked is Rex reflecting on losing everybody over time, and then them almost losing Cody, like that whole process, like that, like you're gonna right off the gate, you're doing this, like pulling on your heartstrings, which is what Clone Wars and Rebels did really well. Once they got their footing and everything, was made you really feel for these characters, especially the clones. And this group of clones who had gone through the, finding the chips and having them removed and all that stuff. My issue with it, though, all your marketing was about what we believe is the Siege of Mandalore. They published today that the last 4 episodes is about the Siege of Mandalore. So they do all this marketing about the Siege of Mandalore, Ahsoka returning, her interaction with Anakin, all of that stuff, and you start with The Bad Batch. I'm not saying it's a bad episode. I'm not saying that it's wrong. It just feels a little disjointed, and it was kind of jarring for me to realize that they're starting with Bad Batch and doing the clones and the clone part over 4 episodes. That was it was just jarring. And once I realized what they were doing, I got into it. I really liked the episode. I liked the updated 3D animation. It's a little bit sharper and it's cleaner. It's a little bit sharper, a little bit cleaner. And it seemed like there was more brightness in the colors and stuff like that. And like you're saying, like the introduction of, what was the spider commander? Remember what his name was?
Nope, not off the top of my head. I'd have to go back and look at it.
It's a really cool character to have. Now, I don't remember if they introduced them in the end of the last season, if not. But it was a cool character to have, and he's just that level of creepy because Spider to make you feel a little weirded out.
My problem with it, and this is a very minor problem that I talk about sometimes with people, is the fact that I am sick and tired of the Star Wars universe in this galaxy introducing more new worlds and more new alien creatures. There's got to be a cap, guys. It's a galaxy. Have them come in from elsewhere, but like every time we get a new Star Wars series, there's some new alien species, there's some new planet, and I'm like, it's getting a little too jam-packed. That's the only issue. You know, again, to your point, I recognize, it was a little weird to start out with the clones. At the end of the day, it's partially their story. But that being said, you got to kind of establish the reasons why. We saw Order 66 occur. All the clones are pretty much wiped out, so they got to build that basis for, why did Rex survive? What happened with Cody and all the rest of these guys? They're really trying to build that emotional attachment to it, so this is a good way for them to introduce. The only issue with the Bad Batch with the whole mutations, giving them kind of special powers almost. It was a little X-Men-y, and it was almost like, hi, Marvel, Star Wars. Little bit kind of in that thing, but the characters are cool. Yeah, they're really cool characters. Yeah. I love them to death. I think they're awesome, and it's gonna be a hoot to see the next episode this Friday. They have a plan, and only being one episode in, I'm not gonna be too overly critical. It's Filoni, and I trust him, immensely with this, and there's a story there that he wants to tell, and knowing that they're doing 4 with the clones and 4 with the Obi-Wan. Is it the Obi-Wan arc? And then they released a thing with some of the episode titles and stuff like that today. And then the last 4 are about Ahsoka, being on walkabout. Or no, the middle ones are Ahsoka's return, and the last one is the Siege of Mandalore. It's it almost feels like those 3 parts were supposed to be 3 separate seasons or maybe half seasons, and they condensed it down into 4 episodes. That's what it feels like. I'm not complaining about it. It just was a little jarring to right off the bat. It was like, oh, okay, that's where we're gonna start. Okay, cool. And what do they call him? Wrecker? The big one that would pick up the shield. We know big, dumb, crazy guys like that, and so it was fun to watch him just kind of be, you got the straight guy in the sniper, or whatever they ended up calling him, but it was just funny to kind of have that interaction with him. I want more of. We're gonna get more of Bad Batch. Well, and here is the interesting takeaway, and I haven't read too many folks, talk about it. Actually, I haven't read any folks talk about it. Is Hunter. And the clones always, they're like, okay, well, what's Hunter's special ability? And everyone goes, he just knows things.
Right.
So the question that I've got kind of lingering out there, because he's a clone with a mutation, so he's not a standard clone, is Hunter actually Force sensitive and doesn't know it?
Right. They've hinted at that in different places before. With Finn, specifically, right? Finn was, but he wasn't a clone.
No.
He was abducted child and stuff like that. Right. But it's just that idea is kind of interesting. It would be kind of cool if Hunter and maybe Rex are Force sensitive or no, or have that kind of abilities to kind of lean into what could be, the future of Star Wars, and we'll talk about Project Luminous and what all that's going to be and stuff. I was really happy with it. I'm interested to see where they're going to go. I love that they're 25-minute episodes instead of 17-minute episodes like they were before. So you get a little bit extra. This is the one time with this last season, I wish they would have just put it all on the platform at once. And so
I do too.
And binge it. I love the week to week that we got with the Mandalorian and what we're going to get with, the Obi-Wan series. But this one, I want to binge it. I've binged all of Clone Wars already. I want to
Yeah.
be able to binge the rest of it, and that's what it comes down to.
Yep. Same way.
Okay, Toy Fair is going on currently in the New Yorks.
Went on. Ended.
What's that? What?
It ended. It's over.
Is it over? Is it over? Okay.
It's over.
A whole bunch of stuff came out, and it's so a little backstory for me and Josh. We're part of a medieval reenactment group. Our largest local event was this last weekend, so I'm still getting caught up on news and notes from the weekend, specifically from the Toy Fair. Josh was only out for a day. I was out for 5 days in the mud. I'm still finding mud in the apartment, by the way. I vacuumed twice today, and I'm still finding mud.
I'm surprised what I brought back after a day out there. I was like, holy crud.
Right. Yes, holy crud. So, you're the toy guy.
I am. They want to know.
Tell us.
So I got back, and obviously, my first thing after Toy Fair is I am a recovering collector of a lot of things. So the big takeaways from this Toy Fair was we're getting some things that we've actually wanted to see. Obviously, the big ones are, it's the 40th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back, so most of this year's releases are tailored around it. The one takeaway, so we're getting some Star Wars Black figures, like Lando and Han and Luke. Not too surprising there. It's pretty much stands to their average releases. They did announce the animatronic Baby Yoda that responds to voice command and everything else. The one thing, however, and this is the one thing that's throwing me for a loop, is when they look at the Toy Fair display and they show Baby Yoda, they give him the levitating egg, his bassinet that floats. If he comes with that, I can overlook, I love Baby Yoda, but I can overlook, Baby Yodel to a degree, but if he comes with the bloody egg to float there in, I'm all over it. That's going to go find a spot here. It's going to happen. The two big takeaways for me out of this, and these were actually surprising because, everyone was giving so much ode to the Baby Yoda thing, is they're releasing two products in the Star Wars line that are actually unique, both of which I am probably going to go out and get. The first one being the Star Wars 6-inch Black series. They're bringing out a snowspeeder. Now, the snowspeeder is one of my favorite Star Wars vehicles of all time, and they're including Dak, the 6-inch Black version of Dak with the snowspeeder. Today. Yeah. The other one that they're doing is the Darth Revan lightsaber. The Force Effects, they are now calling it Force Effects Elite. Which I'm assuming is going to be based off the technology that they're using for Galaxy's Edge, the Legacy Sabers, because the Legacy Sabers are a little bit more put together than the original Force Effects were. It's a gorgeous piece. I don't know how much it's going to be. That being stated, the question that arises from this, and we've had this conversation before, I'm not going to beat a dead horse. Does this kind of make Revan officially canon now? It didn't say Star Wars Legacy. It didn't say Star Wars Expanded.
Right.
It said Star Wars Elite Series Darth Revan. And they've really only released canon lightsabers. Right.
I know that they mentioned Bane in the comic. And so the next logical step was to have Revan in there. So I'm wondering if that's part of, what they're looking to do in the future. Everyone wants Revan, Ahsoka, Aphra in some live action official form. So it makes sense that they would lean into that with we're getting the Black Series toys, we're getting this Elite Saber, there's been some shirts floating around with I think it was a shirt. Was that officially from? It may not have been official from Star Wars. I'm trying to remember where I saw it. It was online, so it could be anything, right? Etsy, right?
It's true.
Yeah, right, exactly. We've got it covered. Says Revan. No. But I would not be surprised if they come out and especially at Celebration and say, okay, here's where our next movie is going to be, and it's all based around Revan, and Keanu Reeves is playing them.
Yeah, and I'll go into this just because I think it's a good segue into our next topic point. What one of the big things that's going to come out of this is, and I guess this is the question that a lot of people are going to ask, and I know people are already spitting it out there. Okay, first off, with the introduction of High Republic,
right?
Does that mean that they have reserved the character of Revan for High Republic, putting him in the High Republic era as opposed to the Old Republic? Now, that being stated, it's a possibility. I'm not going to lie, because they haven't officially introduced him back into canon yet.
Right.
If they do that, it does mean to an extent that they are retconning the entire Star Wars Old Republic officially into expanded universe. And as a huge Old Republic fan, I will honestly say I'm kind of okay with that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's not what I thought you were going to say, but okay.
No, I'm actually, and talking about this, if we look at the timeline for Old Republic, because Project Luminous is come out, obviously with High Republic. If we look at the timeline, my biggest problem that I always had with Old Republic was the fact that the technology that they showed in Old Republic for being 1,000 years prior to the Battle of Yavin looked way too new. Looked like it shouldn't have been 1,000 years old. Looked like it should have been maybe 100 years old at best. Right. So by them bringing in High Republic, the production photos that we've seen in some of the drawings and everything is a little more tangible for me in terms of, yes, this is what older technology would look like as opposed to what they've done in the Old Republic. Right. So it's going to be fun.
It's interesting too that they are like, even with all the toys, trying to keep it on the toy thing for just a second more, but the idea, all the toys that we have out there, all the Black Series stuff, all the pops, all the different things, they're now getting to the point where they're introducing these characters like Revan, like Dr. Aphra, in a toy form to build even more hype for these particular characters. So when we do get them, because it's come, we're all under the assumption that it's coming at some point in time, that we're going to get these characters that us, the deep Star Wars fans, really want. And so having that idea that they're floating there, they're in the realm, and then when they show up and everybody else who really loves Star Wars but don't go as deep as maybe the rest of us see them on the live screen, they're already going to have the merchandise, they're already going to have the stuff out there. It's tidal wave of shopping, just like we got with Baby Yoda, just kind of in the reverse, introducing Baby Yoda first and then coming back around with all the toy stuff. Janice has already said that we can buy the walking, talking, moving Baby Yoda. That's from Mattel. We've already looked for it, and I the only one I found, I'm not really sure if it was right. It was from Walmart. But if that's the price they're going to be, I'm definitely getting one. But the egg, I have to talk about the egg for a second, because I joked when they first introduced Sweet Baby Kevin in The Mandalorian that I have an empty spot over here next to the couch, that I said if that egg ever showed up if life size with him in it, where it's going in the corner.
Yep.
I might need to take a second mortgage on my home, because I didn't see any prices. That's the one thing I did see from Toy Fair.
Yeah,
projected prices on it.
Yeah, I'm kind of. It's one of those things. I am assuming at this juncture that was strictly for Toy Fair. It was strictly a model. That being said, they're going to be ridiculously silly if they do not actually bring that thing out. Why? Because a lot of people want it.
I wonder if Hot Toys is involved in that. I
wouldn't put it past them.
That would be a very Hot Toys kind of thing, because you can get a life-size R2-D2 from Hot Toy. Now it's like $4,500 or something like that.
Yeah, like the Terminator and the Vader.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we've already teased it a little bit and all that noise, but let's talk about the other big news has happened in the Disney universe, and that is Project Luminous. Now, they teased this a celebration last year in Chicago and told us nothing, just saying that's a new concept of the world. A bunch of different authors got together with Pablo Hidalgo, and they had these giant confabs at Lucasfilm. So they came out with it finally last night. Now, before we get into all of this, have you heard why they were so late with the press conference last night? Because I haven't.
No, actually, I haven't.
I haven't heard anything either. They were supposed to start for us here in Arizona 7 o'clock, it was like 8:30 before they actually started,
Right.
and I don't know why. I don't really care because
Well,
they blew the roof off the place.
7 o'clock here. Yeah, 7 o'clock here is 6 o'clock in Cali right now at Lucasfilm. So
Yeah. So maybe it was just bad math on my part, but very, very unique way to unveil this giant secret project that they've had been going for. The initial talk for the project was started in 2014, but the process really started in 2018. And to have this small, not even press conference, just a small, like, here it is, conversation was very interesting. I thought it was very well done from all the stuff that I saw. I wish they had live streamed it. But we are getting this. It's several books. I think
we've got at least 4 on the docket that they showed. They showed the covers to, like 2 young adventure books, the Claudia Gray, and the what's the other one for the one that's doing
Charles Soule is doing one.
Charles Soule, thank you.
I'm trying to bring up. I had the pictures. Talk amongst yourselves. We were so excited about talking about Bob Iger that we didn't get the rest of this.
Yeah, they've done. I know it's part of it when I'm pretty sure they're just kind of soft launching it just to kind of to fiddle what the response is going to be. I mean, they're pretty set in stone for the most part,
right?
But I'd imagine it might affect the other books. But I do know that the first ones are coming out in time with Celebration. If I remember correct, they're going to release it right about Celebration.
Yes. Okay. So the first one is going to be from Charles Soule, and it's called Light of the Jedi. The whole High Republic stuff is 200 years before Phantom Menace. And they described it as Jedi Knights of the Round Table. And you're going to get everybody's attention if you're going to do Jedi Knights of the Round Table, and a little bit more of the Arthurian legend kind of feel of what it means to be a knight, which is a really cool idea in general. Then they talked about how the Jedi are out kind of like Texas
the Rangers.
Rangers. They're going out and they're policing peacekeepers of unknown planets, or we're introduced to planets and stuff like that. So that idea is like super interesting, that you have this super Western meets Arthurian legend concept is really cool. Like, I love that idea. And then the bad guys, the villains of this new High Republic aren't Sith, aren't dark side users. They're called the Nile. And they're described as space Vikings. And the quote that they used was, if you can't take it with you, we'll take it from you, which is a great line that we got. And everything that we got in this discussion from last night is books and comics. And they also said that this is phase 1 of the stuff that's coming out. So we could be and they also said that we're going to get a lot more information as we go forward, as we get closer to the first book, which is called Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule. I would like to point out that the lady on the cover looks like Brie Larson. I'm just saying.
For those of you out there who don't know, Sean has been really trying to ship Brie Larson as a Jedi for a long time. None of us are upset with this idea. It's just that this has been Sean's pet project.
Just look at the photos. Just look at the photos of Brie Larson at Galaxy's Edge with a lightsaber and a Jedi robe.
It is pretty epic.
It's pretty epic. But I know how my feelings are, which is, are you kidding me? This is amazing. But what do you think initially when all of this stuff started to drop?
I'm 100% on board with it. I'm stoked for it, actually. I think this is really good. Again, kind of back to the previous conversation, Does this mean that they're going to retcon Old Republic? Or are they just kind of done with that, and making the High Republic be their Old Republic? Either way, I'm actually okay with this. I'm okay with this. I do think this is really cool, because one of the things they were talking about, there's a couple of points that really stuck out to me as they were kind of doing that video in that soft release. The one of which is the fact that some of the planets in the galaxy that we know haven't been established at this point.
Right.
So the galaxy is still fairly young. They hadn't quite gotten out to the expansion that they've done in the galaxy. So some of those outer rim planets that we know and love, potentially like Tatooine, they may be going into the process of actually discovering for the very first time in this.
Right.
So that's really cool. It's nice to see it being a little more homogenized back to where it was. The Jedis were always peacekeepers. That was always their role. They weren't a militia army. They weren't in control. And I think the Ranger idea in the Knights of the Round Table is 100% fitting for this, because the Jedi at their height of glory, which is what this is, are very much Camelot. They are the pinnacle of what the Force and the Jedi religion is all about. So I thought it was really, really cool that the production photos mimicked Jedi Temple Guardians. So for those of us who know what the Jedi Temple Guardians look like, their outfits are very, very similar in that white and gold kind of a way. Right. But the trick is, this is the Nile, and the Nile is what I actually think is going to be interesting, because when they first said, okay, outside influence, I'm like, oh God, are we bringing the Yazoo Vong back? No, but the Nile space, I don't know if Space Vikings is necessarily the best descriptor for it. I like the whole, you can't take it with you, but we can take it from you thing, because they're more pirate Vikings. Well, Vikings were pirates anyway, but they're essentially that thing, because they're not actually seemingly an independent alien species. If you actually look at those production photos, they look more like I saw some Twi'lek in there. I saw a couple other species in there, but they're all very berserkery, almost Borderlands 3 kind of facial accoutrements and everything. So it looks as though they are established races, but they're almost like, to throw in a Star Trek term in here, the Dominion, where they're kind of this offshoot against the order type of thing, and they run by their own rules. I think that's cool, because there's a lot of different aspects to that. Yeah. And because if you take into account, that the Jedi essentially, at the high point, they are a religious order. The Jedi at this point is kind of a religion and a belief structure and everything. And then you've got this completely, anarchist group out of left field who doesn't believe in it. So I think if you really kind of get into those tones, you're going to see a lot of, here goes the history nerd, you're going to see a lot of that early England type of, versus the Viking invasion type of scenario. And I think that might be what they're going with. So cool.
That's actually like the Arthurian legend is very Fall of Rome to the Viking invaders, that kind of time period. It's not very well established within our own history. I mean, they keep finding new things, and it keeps kind of changing the process of what actually happened and what we actually know and stuff like that. But this idea that you can have these peacekeeping rangers out in the world who keep coming across this group that's trying to, it sounds really weird, but scratch out a living, which is what everybody else is just trying to do. But they're not, their moral compass is a little askew. I love this idea, because you can play with the actual Jedi moral compass, not so much like what we got in the prequels, which is the mightier than thou, on a higher plane than everybody else, which was part of their downfall, but more of the no, we're trying to do good stuff, and we're trying to help those who are less fortunate than ourselves. Back to the Knight's Code, the idea of you defend those who can't defend themselves. And so that idea, having that idea there, is a really cool idea. If I can say idea like 7 more times, I'm totally okay with that. The other thing that got me really excited about this was they talked about how, so unlike previously where they're telling the same story but from different angles or different sides of the conflict, this whole process is the comic and the young adult book and the kids book and the adult comic and the adult novel and all of that stuff are all telling the same exact story, and you're going to need to be able to read all of that stuff to keep up with all the little details that are going to be going on. And that concept, although really cool, I'm not going to lie, I'm really excited about that, is going to get very expensive very fast. And I've already looked. I've already started putting stuff on my wish list. The two books, the light. I can't remember what it's called now. I just had it up. The Light of the Jedi by Charles Soule. That's the adult novel. I'm really excited about that one. That one comes out 2 days before Celebration. And then the other one I'm really excited about so far is Into the Dark, which is Claudia Gray. Now, Claudia Gray has done two of my favorite Star Wars books, Lost Stars and Leia, Princess of Alderaan, which are both young adult books, but they're packed full of stuff. But the big thing the thing that really got me excited was Charles Soule just got done doing the Poe Dameron comic, and he's doing a novel. So he's not just staying in the comic realm; he's actually writing a novel. And they talked about in the video last night that if Charles got stuck, he would go to Jose Marie. I cannot remember his. But they went to him, who did Last Shot, and he's doing the comic. He's doing one of the comics. They work together. Like, how do you deal with the comic stuff? The comic writing stuff. How do you deal with the novel stuff? And they all sat together and did this giant board. What I'm really excited about most of all is they all sat down together and said, "This is the direction we want to go," and they're doing it in different platforms in the publishing side. Now, with knowing all of that, do we think this is the setup for what we may get in the next set of movies? Or are we not going to get movies for a while?
No, I actually think this is. I think if you take it from the business approach, they're in uncharted territory at this point. They no longer have the established story arc that we've been dealing with our entire time. Now they've got kind of this fresh area that they go into. And we know that for, the last year, 2 years, that whole Old Republic concept's been kicked around. Are they going to do this? There's whispering to that. I really think it's probably going to be centered to this. And the reason for that is because this is kind of a soft initiation into that era, because there are there are a couple of established figures that we know that are alive in this time period, the primary being Yoda.
Right.
Yoda at this time period would have been a young Jedi Knight, or Jedi Master, not Grandmaster, but Jedi Master at this point in time, 200 years in the past. Right. So we get to see him a little more, I don't want to say, well, maybe enthusiastic. He hasn't had all the years of the jadedness at this point. We know Wookiees live for a very long time. Wookiee Jedi. Woo.
Wookiee Jedi. I was just gonna say Wookiee Jedi. So we are gonna have this that way. So I think it's because Pablo was involved obviously in all this too, because he's kind of the gatekeeper to the canon. I think this is a good way for them to soft launch, for them to sit their foot in the water, gauge the response. It appeals to people who like the current trilogy. It appeals to those who really dig the Old Republic type stuff. And I think this will probably be the movie direction, because during this time period lays so much foundation work for the evolution of what is to come. So, yeah, man, I think that's probably what they're doing. I think it's smart. And I don't give a care. I'm looking forward to it. Right. From as they were dropping stuff on, I was live updating on Twitter last night while everything was dropping, and the overwhelming majority of people were excited about what they announced last night. There's a couple of trolls out there who are just going to troll, but for the most part, everybody seemed pretty excited about that, which is refreshing, because a lot of people were very upset with how the sequel trilogy has gone, and I've talked about this a lot, that I'm very much into the new canon books and the new canon comics, and so that there's a ton of stuff out there that I think a lot of people are missing. And so having this announcement and having everybody be excited about it, reminding people that, oh yeah, by the way, there's a bunch of really cool books out there. Maybe we'll bring people around and stuff. The concept art was like the fact that they added concept art, like they were actually storyboarding stuff out, which makes me feel even more like they're going to do some kind of connectiveness to the movies, or setting. This is the setup for the movies, the future movies. But the concept art that came out, and I do like the Guard. I like a bunch of the lightsabers. They're very different looking. One of my favorite ones is the like the cast, the Jedi cast together, and like everybody's got their lightsaber out except for the guy in the middle who's kind of floating his in his hand, and all the handles are a little different. And he
lots of cross-guarded lightsabers.
There's one specifically that it has been talked about. That is.
This is not the Kylo Ren style.
Right.
It's very medieval looking.
It's very medieval looking, and they've already said that is very much an Excalibur kind of sword. Not necessarily that it is Excalibur, but that has that kind of meaning to the Jedi Order at that point in time, which I think would be really interesting. There's one particular, they haven't said who the character's name is, but it's essentially me with short hair. I'm already working on the cosplay. He's the guy with the Bud Light can.
Yeah.
When you see all the
Bud Light can on him,
the Bud Light can, I totally just gonna get like a Blue Moon can or something like that and put it in the.
Holy shit! The costumes look cool. The outfits for the Jedi in this phase look cool. There was one of the other ones that really kind of stuck out to me was one of the Jedi next to the droid, or it was one of the alien species next to the droid. Yeah. So and it was really cool to me because like for those people who know me, like know I'm super into atomic space age future stuff, like ray guns and kind of that design style. And the droid was really cool for me because the droid it almost had that aesthetic, like if they were going to design an R2 unit in the 1950s, kind of an aesthetic to it. It was a little cone topped and kind of blue. And I was like, this is really cool. I'm kind of digging it. It wasn't Chopper was almost like a takeout of the Old Republic, to a degree. Yeah. So it wasn't like in that vein. This was a little smooth. The angles were it had kind of that Naboo, like an older Naboo kind of a vibe to it. And I was really digging it.
And the guy he's with is very like nomadic looking. Like, like they talked about how they're going to introduce new smugglers and new bounty hunters and stuff like that. But he came across as a very like not a bounty hunter, like very nomadic, like just like trying to make his like maybe like an Indiana Jones, since we don't have the Dr. Aphra in the live action. So this could be their version of the archaeologist kind of person. That would be kind of an interesting thing. You got this sidekick droid kind of thing going on. So that character was really cool. I really liked the design of the Nile. They talked about how they have light speed abilities that could make them very dangerous, and that the head face apparatus thing is somewhat connected to that stuff. So I thought that design I thought was really, really cool. I get the idea that they may be introduced as like chaotic neutral or chaotic good, who actually end up being like they start off being the stuff they're doing is for good reasons, but then it ends up being construed in a different way. And I think that would be kind of interesting to do a story on. And then what was the other thing that so the whole story is supposed to start with the Great Disaster. Is that what they were calling it? It was something like that. The Great Disaster, the Great Calamity, or something like that. And so in the first book, it starts off with some big giant event that's going to affect everything else that goes on going forward. So it could be, the destruction of a planet. It could be the the ending of a great war. That's how we get the rule of two, and the Sith are kind of hidden in the background the entire time, like that kind of thing. That like all that. I'm spitballing what it could be.
I feel like, and if anyone out there remembers this, check my brain. I feel like there was like the Great Schism, or something that was referenced in either Old Republic or the expanded Legacy stuff now. I want to call, I think it was like the Great Schism, something that happened at some point. So I think this might be their version of bringing it in as a historical reference point.
Right.
I feel like this has been broached before, but to your point, but yeah, this is probably their version of it, bringing it a little closer into the timeline and everything else. But I agree. I think it could absolutely be why there aren't going to be. Now, I think we're going to see Sith at some point in it. I think there's going to be that wink, wink, nod, nod. But again, there might not be, just based off episode 1.
I don't think we're going to get necessarily Sith, quote unquote Sith, out there.
Right.
But definitely some kind of dark side user or dark side attempted user or something along that line.
Not the Sith religion, but dark side users. Yeah.
I think if you're going to do that Sith religion part, I think you really need to go back another 300, 400, 500 years and do the old Republic and do that. I think that there will be at least conversations within this book series or the series of stories they're telling within the publishing, where every once in a while they'll find some dark relic, or there'll be a reference like, oh, back when the Sith were around, like that kind of thing. I think is more what they'll do. It'll be something else that'll be the big bad with, oh God, how cool would it be if they did Pelagius, Dark Pelagius, as like the background kind of thing.
Could be. Yeah,
it would be cool.
I think this is Darth Bane time frame, though, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So I think I think this is Darth Bane, and they've already introduced Bane, so he would be the more likely candidate. I think
it would be really cool. And like I said, if they set this up the right way, it could be the reference material that Kathleen Kennedy said doesn't exist to be what the next set of movies and shows and stuff like that. They've already said that they want to get away from the known time period that we have within the Star Wars saga, the Skywalker saga. As much as we love The Mandalorian and we're excited about Obi-Wan, I feel like those are going to be one or two offs. Let's expand the universe in either the direction. Go back 200 years, go back 500 years, go forward 100 years, 200 years, that kind of thing. So, anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here on this week's episode?
I think we've pretty much covered it. I think they've listened to us speculate enough.
That's what the show's about. We speculate and stuff like that. I had a Super Star Wars. I had a Super Star Wars day yesterday. I got done unpacking and doing all the cleanup and everything, and then I watched Rogue One and then right into A New Hope, because that's how you do it nowadays.
Agreed.
So that is our thoughts and everything on Bob Iger, Clone Wars Return, toys, and of course the High Republic. Everything that we think is going to happen. What did you guys think of our episode this week? All the news that came out, and what our speculation of what the future could be of Star Wars. Let us know in the comments down below. Like this video, please subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. We're doing all kinds of other stuff, not just Star Wars. I know there's other stuff out there than Star Wars. It's hard to believe. But we can also follow us on all the social media stuff too. Facebook, Instagram, sometimes Twitter. I don't get Twitter. It's a thing.
People use it.
People use it, so I have to be on there. So, until next time, I'm one with the Force.
And with me. Take care.